back on track here. First item we have to student teaching and learning, discussion of marching band in the station for Pacific Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade in Hawaii, December 7, 2022.
Hey, Mrs. Roush is here to talk
Yep,
about.
sorry.
Yes, I will volunteer to be a chaperone.
You want more chaperone?
No, wait a minute. I'm gone.
I just kind of, I don't know if you want to kind of, love to, just
Yes,
share it.
thank you very much. Welcome.
Good idea. I have it on a PowerPoint, but I don't trust myself. I can make my technology work in the places where I need it to work. If I get much beyond that,
I have this already in the email.
oh yeah, I think I shared that with
But
you.
if anyone else needs one.
So basically, we were very, I don't know where to stand. Not be like, we were excited. We got a letter inviting the Somerset Berkley marching band to represent the state of Massachusetts at the Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade on December 7th. And it's obviously quite an honor. I read the letter to the kids and I said, you should be proud of yourself. Obviously, you know, an exciting thing. And I asked them, what do you think? Like, is this something you want to pursue? It is time out of school. I'm not sure that that's something that would happen, but let's, if you are interested, we'll just go from there. Of course, they are. I got some more information. I talked to the committee that was sponsoring it. You can go for anywhere from the 5 days, 4 nights, up to the 6 days. As much as it would be nice to go for a long time, I wouldn't want to take them out of school that long. And I also want to make the trip as affordable as possible. If we did the 5-day, 4-night, it would be about $2,500 with the airfare. And that would include the, there's $180 insurance fee that you get so that if we had to cancel, we would get, the students would get their money back. It is comparable to what they've paid, I think, in the past for Disney and things like that. In the past, the marching band has done a trip to Pennsylvania every year for a marching band competition final. We're not competing anymore. We do go to some competitions to present our show and get some feedback. But we're in festival class, so we don't go to that finals. So it would be a nice opportunity, and we're not spending money on that part. So I think that'd be great. One of the things I really liked about this is, first, it's honoring veterans, which to me, I think that's important for our students to learn and to know about and to do. I think, I always had them. This year we did the Veterans Day ceremony in Somerset. We did the parade in Fall River. We did the Visa Across America. We will do the Memorial Day parade if there's one. And the other thing is there's some really great opportunities to learn a lot about the history of Pearl Harbor and a lot of the historical sites that they would visit. I gave you an idea, it's kind of flexible of some of the things that they would do. Like I put day 1, day 2. We can flip them around a little bit. We can't change the day of the parade. But like things that they would go to Diamond Head, they get to the Dole Plantation, they get to do a cooking demonstration. They have some time on the beach, some beach walks, things like that. And I think that, it'd be a great, they go to Pearl Harbor, the museum, the USS Arizona Memorial. They get to do a performance at the USS Memorial, USS Missouri, on the deck of USS Missouri, they can perform there. They also have an opportunity to perform with all of the groups that are representing all the different states, which is a really great opportunity. And of course, the parade, it's about a mile long on the 7th, and they say it's very nice. They have tiki torches, and it's lit up, and a couple of concerns when I emailed Dr. Brelsford about it is this coming year we were hoping to do the Disney trip that we did not get to do because of COVID. I did have some concerns about, you have 2 trips going in 1 year, just as, I don't want, I don't want to take away from the music department's opportunity to participate in the Disney trip if that's what they want to pursue and do. I know that that's something that we've talked about, but I don't think anything has definitely been done. If by chance there's not enough interest, or not a parent, or kids are not able to do both a Hawaii trip and a Disney trip in the same year, I know for Aaron, I don't think I could do both. I could extend the performance on the USS Missouri to the concert band, and so the concert band and marching band could go to Hawaii. It's a difference of a few extra kids, really, between the groups. And that way, if we didn't have enough kids that were able to go to Disney, they would miss, the concert band kids would not miss out on an opportunity. So everybody would still get an opportunity for a trip. Does that make sense? Sorry, it's late. But as I said, it's on December 7th, which is kind of tricky because it's a Wednesday. So it would mean 4 days out of school, probably 5 because of the flights. I can, stress to the children that it is their responsibility to make up work. It does, I can provide opportunities before and after. I always tell the kids, I'm always welcome to come in early and set up. If I can't help you with homework, there's, kids in the band, they help each other out. So I can offer opportunities. So that's it, I guess. If there's any questions.
A few questions?
I have a lot of questions, I'm afraid. I'm very concerned about the idea of asking our kids to spend $5,000 in a given year for trips. It obviously excludes certain people, certain kids. And I know that there's a big fundraising effort to help defray some of the costs, but it's a real concern. The other thing I wonder about is how many states actually participate in the parade. I went online, and it just occurred to me that maybe the participation was impacted by COVID in 21.
Yeah.
But it looks to me like there are only about 10 states that were represented by bands in the parade, according to the list of the participants. So it doesn't appear to me like every state has a band participating. And I wondered with this amount of time out of school and this expense, I think maybe the first step would be for us to give preliminary approval to do further investigation, because I think with a trip like this, perhaps you should try to reach out to some of the bands that actually have participated, if there are any from Massachusetts or any from New England, and see what their experience was, and whether they thought it was worthwhile to make that trip. And I've been to Hawaii only once, and it was long after I graduated from high school and college and law school. And so, but I certainly could say the experience of visiting the Arizona Memorial is just an incredible experience. I mean, it is an experience almost well, the reverence that is shown by everyone who is there is extraordinary. And the experience of visiting Hawaii is fantastic as well. So I don't want to be too pessimistic about this, but I really think it warrants some further investigation to see if other bands that have participated feel that it was a worthwhile experience. And then the question of whether it's practical to try to have 2 trips in 1 year is another issue. So those are just my thoughts. I mean, if it's
Just give a shot before you start. I want to reserve my spot to speak.
worthwhile experience, then maybe we have to prioritize which one we're going to do. I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. But I think we can. Do you know what the deadline is for responding positively to participating?
I can call them back. They they understand that we have to go and get permission through our school and our school committee and things like that. If we decide not to go, they will go to the next person on the list to invite them. So I don't want to keep them for too long, but I understand as far as getting, information. The group that was supposed to go last year pulled out because of COVID. So I could have to find out which group went before that. And I understand what you're saying with the 2 trips in a year, obviously a concern of mine as well. And that's why I tried to say we'd find a way to include the concert band so that everybody would have the opportunity to go on a trip. And I don't think it would impact the chorus or orchestra in that the band is a smaller group, the chorus is a bigger group, so the prices are cheaper. The more they go, the less money it is. So I don't think it's going to impact the cost of the Disney trip for the other students a great deal. But I do understand, I share your concern, I understand.
Ms. Machado, your question?
I just got to, so the cost would be about $2,500 per student?
Yes.
And your concern and everyone's concern seems to be about the Disney trip and as a parent, if I was to tell my daughter she's not going to Disney, but she's going to Hawaii instead to participate in something, or if I had to make that decision as a parent, she would be going to this. And the reason why is, one, anyone who's been there would understand why I feel the same way as Mr. Pierce does. But the thing that I'm extremely jealous for anyone who participates this is going to be the 81st year, even though it's the 80th anniversary that they're celebrating, is just the opportunity, if any, to be standing or meeting someone who actually experienced it. Those numbers are getting to a very handful, and I feel that just if our students even just had the opportunity to meet a veteran who experienced that before, and they're probably in their very late 90s or very early hundreds, and I know there are still a few that do participate every year, that alone will be something that they will remember forever. And it's something that, like I said, I would love to have had that experience, because I still, till this day, enjoy meeting people who served in World War II. I do concern about parents who would want or has to pay for both. I think it should be one or the other. I really do. I don't think we can ask parents to participate, even if students would like to do both. I think you would have to make the decision one or the other, because of the idea of someone may not have that $5,000 to spend, and we can't even go down that avenue. I think it has to be one or the other, and I think you have to make that decision, or the students have to make the decision. But it's something that I can definitely support. Regarding about students missing the whole week of school, well, there are many things that we do, that students miss the whole school. They'll be responsible for the work. I think the administration and the team and the staff would understand that this is a learning experience that I don't think they will ever forget. So it's something that but I would have a hard time supporting both, because I just know there are too many people out there that wouldn't be able to afford both.
I understand, I have a daughter in marching band and chorus, so,
Yep.
it would come right to, she would have to pick.
Yeah.
So Mr. Machado touched on a lot of things I was going to say. In my family, we just lost 2 grandparents. My wife's grandfather passed away, who was at Normandy. So my kids are lucky enough my grandmother passed away a couple weeks ago. With that being said, that generation that's been exposed to the World War II generation is shrinking. I'm lucky both of my kids had firsthand experiences with them, and I think it's very important to have our kids experience this. History tends to repeat itself at the end of the day. We are in school, and I think I would really like to see the kids have an opportunity to experience this. I am a little jealous because I would love to go. And I think as far as Disney World goes, I again agree with Mr. Machado. It's a trip that's a little bit easier to make at the end of the day. You can get a flight pretty easy out of Providence to Orlando. If we have to pick one of the two, I really think we should pick, just seeing the USS Arizona Memorial sounds and like an unbelievable experience to me. I would hate to see our students miss out on that. I look forward to seeing any pictures if it goes through.
Yeah, and it's a tough choice. Disney offers the workshops that behind the scenes that you don't get to do on regular vacation. And the plus to that, it's, during the vacation week. And of course, plus to the Hawaii is, I've never even been to Hawaii either. And it does have the connection with history and our veterans. So it's a tough choice.
Speaking as a student, a part of the music program, I was in kid choir, and even though I'm not in band, boy would I have loved to have joined band and gone to this, because Hawaii sounds amazing. I just texted my family we should do a trip there soon, because it sounds so much fun. Speaking from somebody who will be leaving high school soon, the things that I remember most are the experiences, and this is just like the experience of a lifetime. Some kids may never get to go to Hawaii or venture out that far off to the West Coast in their lives, and making that historical connection with people. I still remember from our DC trip, Holocaust survivors, meeting them was just amazing. I still remember what they said to me, and I think getting to meet those people would be so amazing for the kids next year. And when it comes to Disney or Hawaii, I think you might just have to ask the kids about that, because some do feel strongly about Mickey Mouse, but I feel that Hawaii might be edging it out. So I think I just ask the students to pick one. Because
I asked, I said, if it comes down to choosing, because it could be that most families would not be able to do 2 trips. Are you okay? Do you have a preference? And they had all said Hawaii.
oh yeah, I would think so. That sounds amazing, but yeah.
And when it comes to choosing, there's a handful, maybe like 4, I think, students who are in the color guard who are also in chorus. So again, I don't think it's impacting the other groups a great deal. So I don't want to take away from any experiences from other students in the music department.
I think you got to keep in mind too, the window's shrinking. And Mr. Andy's in town, who does the Wreaths of America charity, points out regularly that in just a couple of years, there's going to be no World War II veterans left. So this opportunity isn't going to be around too much longer.
I just had a couple of questions. How many students would be going on this, would you guess?
It would be probably about 30. I currently have, it's kind of, I have 20 to 28 students in the marching band right now.
Yeah.
And I say that because I have 2 students who are on the football team, so they do parades and some of the shows with us, but they don't necessarily do all of the events, so that we call them the part-time members.
Yeah, okay.
And I have a student that comes and does props just for the shows, but doesn't comes to all the practice. So I have some kind of.
So 30.
I'm losing 4 seniors from the marching band. I know I'm getting at least 4 students who've already, they're dying to come up, they can't wait. And there's more than that have expressed an interest, but of course until they come and try it out.
Yeah. So, the other question was on the affordability. Is that, on these trips, you typically have any kind of fundraising?
There would be a lot of fundraising.
Yeah.
Would it be an all or nothing? So if, you have the students, they couldn't afford it, or you couldn't raise enough funds, how would you handle that?
I will see Karen for the Friends of Music and ask if they would help support students.
That's my biggest concern, is that you'd have people that wouldn't be able to participate for the financial reasons.
I believe that there would be 2. One I know that definitely would need some help.
Yeah.
And then another family that might swing it, but they have 2 students in the marching band. So they might need help with one of the students.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Are there currently any 8th grade students participating in the marching band as we've had in the past?
No, not
Okay.
anymore.
And I know, or at least I understand, for the Disney trip that was supposed to occur, this past April?
Yes. Well, it's going to be this April coming up, it's supposed to.
This April, I'm sorry. I thought Mr. Young said that there were there was only one group who was actually invited to participate this year, so it wouldn't have been, the show choir wasn't
But I think it was,
invited or something, and neither was the marching band, I forget which group it was.
so the marching band, concert band, and show choir, I believe, and we applied for all of them, they did not get accepted. The orchestra did, and I believe, I don't know for sure if the chorus did or not. And what happened is because the trips have been canceled by schools, like we were supposed to have a Disney year. This year was supposed to be a Disney year, it got canceled, so now I'm going to try to go next year. So many schools are trying to do that, that there's more, they can't give you all the slots. So what it would mean is that if that happens again, we could go and you could still do the workshop part, but they also have the part where you perform in parks, and that's the part that they didn't get accepted to. There's that there's a strong possibility that could happen this year. The travel agent said that they could arrange to do a performance at Universal Studios, but that's paying for an additional park, so it did increase the price in order to do that.
I was just wondering if there was, there's sort of a guaranteed invitation to Hawaii, but if Disney is up in the air in terms of who's going to participate and who might not, if that was a factor that should be considered at all. I don't want to take away the Disney trip, but I also know.
It's a lot to consider, and that's why it's kind of nice to have school committee to say, here's all the information, and I think personally, I think the Hawaii trip would be a better option, but, I understand the concerns that, that have been brought up, very valid concerns.
And both of these would be, I think what Mr. Pierce is asking, both of those would be in the 22-23 school year, right? One is in December of 22, and the other would be in April of 23.
Correct.
Same school year.
Mrs. Roush, when would you need to make a decision by?
As soon as possible.
The Disney trip was supposed to be this summer.
So if we went with Mr. Pierce's,
Go ahead.
if we went with Mr. Pierce's recommendation, just to get us to do some more research and come back, would that be, you think that would still work for you?
I mean, I would think so. I can
Okay.
call the coordinator that I've been in contact with. I will ask him if he'd be able to give us the names of some bands that have participated, if not last year, then at least the year before. And I can reach out to those directors and get that information back. I can also reach out and find out when do we have to have a decision by,
Okay.
and get that exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, if you have that leeway. I mean, I think it's, anytime our students can experience something, I think that's great, and I love to see our musicians featured in another part of the United States. So if there's a way that you can confirm that this is a valuable experience, that there hasn't been issues in the past, and you can also confirm that you've got a good number of students that are committed to going, then I think that this would be something, I know it's something that I would support, because we've heard that there's support amongst the school committee for it.
I mean, I can get that information, I can get it back to Mr. Schoonover. I don't know if it's joint, I can email it to you as well, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our student representative report. Sophia Puccini.
So, we last met on February 11th, 2021. That's what we did, 2022. We discussed the masks being optional that we were doing. We asked you input from Mr. Schoonover, so what our feelings were. General consensus was to make it strongly recommended, but not required. Another one we discussed was the vaping problem, which is so evident in the high school now. Basically, still the problem of many people crowding in the bathrooms and other students walking in and having to use the restroom, but not being able to because of crowding or people being there and stuff. That was discussed. Possible solutions were also bathroom monitors that circled instead of having one outside of the bathroom, having monitors that surround the bathrooms. That was probably our best option because the set the sensors that check were didn't work super well, and other options were discussed, but that's the best option from the student perspective. The other issue that we would like to resolve, which seems pretty feasible for now, is having a trash can in the student parking lot. The student parking lot has been a little crazy the past few days in high school with the snow, but besides that, having the trash cans, a lot of students, even outside of the committee that we spoke with, are saying, oh, that would be a great idea because they have to walk to the tennis courts or the outdoor cafeteria. Or oftentimes they just don't. They just leave it in their cars and their parents get mad at them. So just having that solution, I'm not sure who I'd be able to talk to about that. Be getting those trash cans, and that's just a solution that we want to make sooner rather than later, just to get help our and we also talked about our schedules. We were asked by Dr. Brelsford to give some input with the schedules for next year. Basically saying just keeping it the same. We also spoke a little bit about capstone and how it's going to be integrated into our learning a little later. Well, I don't know, but integrated into the learning for later on, which me personally think is a great idea. That's how kids are going to learn for the real world, and it's actually bringing real world skills, which I totally think is amazing for the curriculum. Another thing we brought up at a past meeting, but came up in a few discussions, was the curriculum between Somerset and Berkley in this time where we're already thinking about next year and making curriculum tweaks. We're still seeing some parts where Berkley Middle School, people coming out from Berkley Middle School receive some different topics being learned between Somerset Middle School students, particularly in the world history department. A lot of Somerset kids tend to have more background knowledge about world history than kids from Berkley Middle School. And I noticed that last year of our AP World History class, our teacher would often say, who remembers about feudalism? And a lot of the Somerset kids would say, yes, I do know, but a lot of the Berkeley kids would not know. So making that equitable between schools, I think is super beneficial, because then we kind of get a more cohesive learning environment. We're not repeating old stuff that needs to be gone over multiple times, and get to learn more new information. Is social emotional learning. That was discussed. Okay, with Blue Raider blocks and having basically just time for classes, having studies, just kind of basically little things that can't really be really. Sorry, my notes are getting old. Yeah, so just maybe increasing Blue Raider blocks, because that we feel that last year was really great time for us. It's not super feasible with the schedule. It was just brought up that we really like having Blue Raider blocks, but we're not sure how we can integrate that into our time now. And then a small situation at the high school has been a parent drop-off situation in the mornings. Me personally, I get to school a little later than my sister would like. And we were actually late today, I thought. But just, there's a lot of influx of parents creating a line. I know there was even an accident. There was actually a couple accidents in the past few weeks involving some students even, and just a lot of parking problems, not having anywhere to park in the student parking lot because spaces were being filled with snow. Some kids were kind of parked on snow and were receiving tickets for it, obviously. That's not safe. So I'm not sure if there's any way that we can kind of reduce your parents bringing in, because it's a lot of traffic coming into the school, and a lot of parents dropping off their students in the student parking lot, which has been not liked by students, and foresee a problem being had with parents, basically parents bringing their kids into the student parking lot, drop them off, and they're in the way of other students. And us being not very experienced drivers, that sort of back up into a parent, or I don't want to even think about the possibilities because we are not the best drivers, but possibly finding a solution for that too. And that's everything we talked about.
Did Mr. Machado have a question? I do.
But go ahead, I think you had your,
Okay, so, trying to pick up some action items. Is there any reason why we can't get a response from our Director of Facilities as to when we get trash cans in the parking lots? Do
Already
we have
in,
that for next meeting, or?
yes, it's already in action. Yep.
All right, is there any way that we could start some sort of a pilot program in the bathrooms? As I mentioned this since the issue was first raised. I was, we heard the problem about the bathrooms several years ago. And we talked about trying to address it in various ways and looking at the monitors, but apparently they're not a viable option. But it's disappointing to me that this situation continues essentially unaddressed, and it's just unfair to our students that if you are making the situation extremely uncomfortable, if not unacceptable. So I'm just wondering if there's some way that we can get some advice or get a pilot program where we bring one person in who floats from bathroom to bathroom so they never know when they're going to show up at a particular place, and just see if it makes any difference so that we can really try to figure out a way to address this, or but try to poll superintendents and see if any one of them has found a solution that seems to work at all. I think somebody, when I raised this before, someone on the committee who probably has more experience with education said it's an impossible situation to address. But I don't know. It's hard to accept. You can't. I mean, we have a policy that says there's no vaping in school. There's no vaping, whatever you call them, instruments or whatever they are allowed in the school. And yet we have a huge number of students who are in there between virtually every class, making it extremely uncomfortable for 80% or 90% of the student body. I mean, I never mentioned this, but you and I did a classroom visit one time to look at the co-teaching model, and I was sitting in the back of the room, and it just wasn't appropriate for me to say anything, but as I was sitting, you were sitting more in the middle of the class with a group of students. I was sitting in the back of the room just observing. I saw one student pass a vaping device to another student, and then that student get up and walk out in the middle of the class, apparently to go to the bathroom with the device. I was amazed that students don't have to get permission to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the class. But anyway, I find it, I realize I'm from a very different generation, but I just find it hard to accept that. So a very small number of students are just flaunting the rules because they do exist and making it so uncomfortable for the majority of students. So I don't know if we can find a little money to just try, maybe experiment. I don't know. Maybe you can find some volunteers.
I'll talk with Dr. Brailsford and Mr. Taro, and we'll come up with a plan.
And then the parking, is that something, or the traffic, is that something that's just being experienced now because of the snow situation, or is that been a chronic problem this year? And is there a way to address that in terms of where parents are dropping off and
Sophia will provide a better answer than I will, but from my understanding, the new traffic pattern this year, from where parents, I believe, most if not all parents are being directed from Clifford Holland to drop off. And then the line backs up quite a bit, so then some of them are cutting the line by going through the student lot by the softball field and then dropping off closer to the entrance by the building. And that additional traffic coming through is causing problems for students entering the parking lot and also going into open spaces because the parents are lined up now in a queue, not allowing students to park, to access the spot. So the students are now also waiting in the queue and then potentially being targeted to school. Is that generally what's occurring?
Yeah, I was dropped off before I could drive, but, and I'm not a problem. But basically before, I'm horrible with roads, but this road right here used to be used for drop-offs, but now it's used just for special education buses. And before, when I was getting dropped off, the special education buses would always be in the way. So I think that's a good solution for them. But what's happening now is on county. County is extremely busy. It's constant stop and go, especially with the crossing guard being there. It's very difficult to go on county. I don't drive on county just to get to school just because it's so busy. I go through, but then they're coming in from the county entrance, which is right there, and they're also coming in from the Clifford Holland entrance back there, which is creating two lines that are just cars up until 7:23 or 4, I'd say, that are still just lines of kids waiting. And then it's not just it could just be me complaining about the student parking lot, but they're also going to the teachers' parking lot too to drop off their kids. And I've heard it from teachers that are saying, yeah, we have these parents just flying in here, dropping their kid off and flying out. So it's kind of affecting all of the students and staff that drive to school. So I think it may have to just be, I'm not sure if that's an email to the parents to say, hey, you need to stop bringing your kids into our parking lots because it's becoming a safety hazard. And if you do, I know Officer Roberts is there every morning. It might result in a ticket if so, because it's just disrupting the traffic patterns. That's the solution that I was thinking could be how to help it, but if there's any other suggestions, I'd love to hear them.
So following our meeting on Friday, I did stop by Officer Roberts' office, shared with him what the students were explaining, and asked him if he can go out and monitor the situation for a day or two this week, and then we would figure out what the next steps would be.
We have had a traffic engineer work for us, and I mean, maybe that's the initial solution, but if not, and it continues to be a chronic problem, maybe we should just have that engineer look at it, see if they can come up with any kind of a solution. I don't know, whether we need to reline the roads or put up signs that limit traffic to move in certain directions. I don't know what the answer is, obviously, but and you've got buses coming at the same time, which I suppose is another issue because they have to be able to get in and out because they can move on to the middle school pickups. So I know it's not an easy solution, but cooperation.
So I guess if I could, I drop off, or my wife will drop off my daughter at 7 o'clock. So I don't see the traffic when I do drop her off in the morning, but I do have to say I kind of struggled with the new pattern that is currently. And the reason why is, one, we're dropping kids off at this entrance right here now, when they used to be dropped off at the other entrance. So I understand the reason why there was a backup on County Street. I see kids getting off earlier because it's right near the door, and then every once in a while you'll see a teacher say, no, you gotta keep on moving. And sometimes I'm pulling and waiting in the car, and I turn around and there's my daughter, she's gone. She already opened the door and she's walking across. So it's just, I think the idea, and then the other thing is, what I used to like about when it was on this side was you pulled in, you dropped off your kid, and if someone's taking a long time, you were able to pull out and keep on going, especially when kids are unloading. If kids are unloading like 4 or 5 kids, 4 or whatever out of a car, and you're behind that person, you have to wait. There is no opportunity to pull out. I also don't like the idea of students crossing a street, even though no other cars are supposed to be coming. But the thing that really irritates me more is when someone who may not know the traffic pattern pulls in, and Officer Roberts or a teacher sits there for a while and they'll explain the rules, and next thing you know, now that person has to do a turnaround in where the flagpole is. So to me, I think that if the issue was that the backup, I think, I'm no traffic expert, and I think you should get a traffic expert to come in, but no left-hand turn into this parking lot So anyone who is dropping a student off has to go around Prospect and come down this street and then pull in. You could only make a right-hand turn, and that eliminates the problem. So people either have to go up Buffington Street and get onto Prospect and come down here and turn, instead of trying, and now, because I don't think I've ever heard students complaining about not being able to get into the parking lot until this new traffic pocket. So I think there are a lot of other options that we can do, but this new traffic, I think, I'm sure there's a reason, and you all had a reason to do so, and I'm not gonna do your jobs, but it is an issue. It really is an issue that should be addressed. But the other thing that I'm still really irritated about the vaping. And if I recall, there are laws against vaping in schools. My question is, if we know there is an issue, why isn't the SRO? Because I heard, and I was very upset, and I reached out to you about students getting citations in our parking lot. But yet, why aren't students getting citations for vaping in school? Because it is a state law, but yet we enforce a town law. And to me, it kind of, they're breaking the law. Why isn't the SRO going through these bathrooms? And I'm sure he is. I'm sure he or she, but it's very difficult to go into a female bathroom as well. But I think we need to figure something out, because we're quick to give a citation for a parking on the snow and where there is no parking, but yet someone who's violating a state law is, we know there's a problem, we're not really, we have to enforce it. We have to figure out a way, and it has to be done. Because, hate to say this, this is the 4th meeting we've talked about this now, 4th. And I don't know what actions have happened in the last 4. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, regarding the snow and students parking on, obviously, and I mentioned this to you before, historic storms, it's very rare when we get a 20-inch storm dropped. Was it 215 you said? The 2015 was the last one or something like that. I am really, and I completely understand. Students, you know the rules, you can't park in the student parking lot, but if a child is trying to get into school, and they need to get into school and they don't have a parking pass because they weren't able to get on that first lottery pick or whatever the case may be, and now they're forced to park in somewhere because they have to go into the school, or worse yet, when a child who does pay for a parking spot and either is forced to park in a teacher's parking lot or across the street at a church and get a citation as well, that's unfair as well. And I'm just wondering what kind of, because the notification that I saw from Mr. Roberts, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's why I'm asking you the question. I know I saw that letter, that email that was sent out to all the students, that was sent out like at, let's say, 8 o'clock or whatever the case, and it said that I have already given citations. And I know you've received warnings over and over again not to do so. But my question is, when there's snow like that, were there any pre-warning saying, hey, because I think people forget, hey, I know the custodians are constantly cleaning, the lot. I know Fisher's pulling all the snow into certain parking spots. You lose 1, 2, 3 parking spots. But this becomes an issue where we're charging students to park, and we all know how I feel about that, and that's not why I'm going with this. But I'm just wondering, what notification did you receive either that morning or the night before saying, hey, parking is going to be limited? Because I just have a hard time giving a citation to a student who's just trying to get into school, but yet we don't give citations out for students who are vaping. So it kind of bothers me. And it's one of those things like, okay, we're quick to write one, but someone that's actually breaking the law is the one that really bothers me. And we all know for a fact that it makes students uncomfortable to walk into that environment. But yeah, so that's what I have to ask. The question is, what have we done in the last 4 meetings to try to prevent this? And if nothing, can we work on it?
Dr. Brusford, is there anything?
Oh, he's throwing you.
No, anything, regarding Officer Robert, checking bathrooms?
Yeah, Yeah, so we do that. The difficulty is wherever we happen to be in the building, by the time the teacher contacts us and we get to wherever that bathroom is, they're gone. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that the discipline statistics for vaping are well lower than the instances. Now that staff attendance has increased because the COVID cases have gone down, when we do not have, we have between 4 and 6 subs that come in on a daily basis, and if we do not have to use them in classrooms, that is now what they're doing, is they are roaming the hallways. In fact, tomorrow, knock on wood, is supposed to be, right now we don't have a lot of people out, so that will be what we use our subs for, is rotating the halls and going in the bathrooms to check on that. So that's a step that we've tried to implement up to this point. But it's hard to catch people. You know, there are rules around what we can search for and what we can't. Like we can search on reasonable suspicion, but we have to have reasonable suspicion, and then there are only certain ways and things that we can search, and some people are very well aware of what we can and cannot do. I really don't want to go into specifics on that, but and that deters it, because I certain in certain cases that the student has the vape on them, but there's only certain places that I can search.
Yeah.
So that is a step that we've put into place.
So unless someone is caught red-handed, you know, if someone is caught with the vaping device in their hand.
Or we have reason
then
to
it's-
think that they
Yeah.
have it on them, then we can search them. But it's difficult to catch them. The cameras, there are a lot of, like it takes a long time to go through the cameras and find the person, and so it's not as easy as one might think to catch people doing the vaping in the bathrooms. So
Yeah, I can
we have put steps in. We encourage students, and we have actually been successful with this. We have told students, if there's vaping going on in the bathroom, shoot us an email. We will not use any names. And that has been successful because we all have our emails linked to us, you know, wherever we are in the building. So if you get that email, you know, and you're on the second floor and it's on the, oh, I got it, and we go in and do it that way. So it's kind of like an anonymous reporting, and we have had some success with that. So those are some things that we have already put in place, but it's not easy to catch them. And, you know, beyond the state law concerns, you know, I also have the health concerns about it and the things that can be in the vapes, because it's not just nicotine that you can find.
Can we do like vape detectors? Those things exist. I'm trying to Google like that you could put in bathrooms that would, you know, go off.
And we did try that.
Oh, you did?
And it was not
Okay.
effective.
Okay, all right, there.
And how about the limiting of bathrooms?
Oh, please no.
What's
I'm
that?
sorry.
No.
So, yeah.
I like the honesty.
Yeah. Basically, last year with COVID, when it was limited bathrooms, there was lines out the
Yeah,
door.
it
of the
takes a
bathroom.
long
Okay.
time.
We can.
Okay.
Yes.
Something else that we have
Just
put
like
before, I'll segue into the budget top. It's 9:20.
Okay.
Something that we've put in the budget for next year too is something called e-hall pass, which is an online program that can be used for passes. So you can actually, the teacher really quickly can indicate who's been in the bathroom, and it's a check and balance for everybody in the school. And we have looked at other schools that have used it, and it's been really, really successful. So that has cut down some other school districts on the vaping during classes. We heard from the students though that, you know, the bigger problem sometimes is in between classes. So again, we've told our substitute teachers / hallway monitors right now, like try to be in there in between classes, but to cut down on what's happening during class, that is something that we're gonna pilot in March. Mr. Levesque has already ordered that. We're going to pilot that with a specific group of teachers with the hopes of implementing that school-wide in September.
Can I just comment on the snow, Mr. Machado brought up some parking things. I know there was concerns about the sidewalk on County Street, and I know you addressed it. But what bothered me was some of the comments I heard from people and on social media blaming our custodians who worked very hard that day. You know, I understand, but just going forward, it bothers me when people like that are taking the heat for it. And this is something we got to work out beforehand, so those guys who are working hard are out here in 5-degree temperatures aren't taking the blame from the town. That was nothing to do with them. They worked very hard that day. And no offense, guys, you got to make sure that they're not put in that spot. If you're taking the heat from people in town, oh, look at our custodians didn't want to shovel the sidewalk. So I wanted to bring that up publicly, that they were out here working very hard that day. Those guys have no problem going down there, taking care of the sidewalk. It's like, we got to do stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, to make sure we have the right equipment too. Do we own, I don't know what sidewalks were referred to, but I noticed that we're not clearing the sidewalks on County Street outside the fence. Seems to me that that's a safety issue for our students because I think a lot of students walk along, would walk along that sidewalk, and I don't know what they're doing as an alternative. I know I'm not sure whether the town passed an ordinance that requires the butters to clean the sidewalks. It was discussed at one point, it may not have passed the town meeting, but we should be thinking about the sidewalks in the area, you know, in front of the building, on the side of the building. The sidewalk on Luther is in terrible shape, so it's not an easy thing to clear off.
Following that major snowstorm, I did ask our facilities director, who shared it with all of our custodians. I believe I included all the principals as well. And for the high school, the expectation is that Luther Ave from Blue Ridge Boulevard down to County Street, all of County Street, and then the sidewalk up, you know, which used to be Grandview, and then basically everything looping the soccer fields, in addition to all the other walkways, which are already standard procedure. All of that needs to be cleared after each snowstorm.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, December rated visionaries of the month. Alyssa Alvin, Digital Citizen. Wilson Baptista, Independent. Anna Connor, Respectful. Amber Diaz, Empathetic. Stella Fernandez, Academic. Emma Murphy, Empathetic. Joseph Ramos, Respectful. Donna Simon, Resilient. Emma Murphy, Respectful. Joseph Ramos II, Resilient. Thomas Rose, Digital Citizen. And Taylor Soares, Independent. January rated visionaries of the month. Gilson Carlos Baptista, Empathetic. Nathan Caruso, Academic. Julia Donahue, Academic. Seth Lee, Respectful and Resilient. Emma Murphy, Respectful. Joseph Ramos, Resilient. Thomas Rose, Digital Citizen. Taylor Soares, Independent. So congratulations to all our honorable students.
Can I just ask a quick question? I noticed that one of the students was commended for working in English as a second language classroom with Dr. Doucette. Have we had an increased number of English language learners at the high school? I remember a few years ago having the numbers and it was very, very small. Do we have an increased number? We actually have a class in the curriculum for...
We are required to provide English language instruction, and the students that we have, it continues to be a very small number, but we must provide them the instruction. So that's, we do have some students that we are FELs, formerly English language learners, but we also have, I think 2, or we may be up to 3 presently, that are receiving direct instruction, and Dr. Doucette is our ESL teacher in district.
All right, moving along, business and financial. First up, we have recommendation to increase the 2021-22 budget by $139,500, $40,000 for OPEB, $42,000 for access points, and $57,500 for lab upgrades. With these new funds coming from the Certified Excess and Efficiency Fund. There's been maybe some modification to this. This was a recommendation of the Budget Subcommittee for some of the excess funds that we have in E&D, but my understanding is that one of these items that we have identified here would not meet the timeline we want to expend the funds. Is that correct, Mr. Carter?
That's correct. When we made that recommendation to the Budget Subcommittee, we were in the process of preparing our E-rate application and hopefully leveraging the E-rate application to those funds and thinking we could probably get that done sooner than later. The problem is the application, the soonest we could probably get funding approval could be April, but it could be also July or August, depending how quickly they process our application. So if these funds were approved, there's no way from an audit standpoint that we can encumber and expend those funds from the E&D and not get too ahead of ourselves with the E-rate application. So I'm pulling back on that because I'm worried about jeopardizing how we would use E-rate, and then from an audit standpoint, making sure that we're not violating any of the encumbrance regulations or laws relative to that. I do have some recommendations and some things that we can do relative to E&D. Other than that, if it's something the school committee would be interested in entertaining, one would be there's some devices that are listed on the budget report, which would be some devices we would be replacing in the office. And for the content coordinators, we're moving away from a Citrix environment, so I'm not going to speak too much in detail because I leave that to Mr. Levesque. But what would happen is we're moving away from the Citrix environment and we would need to replace those devices. Our recommendation would be if we can replace those devices, about a $19,000 investment. We put the access points on, and then there's a total of $43,000 that we can actually take out of the budget, so it would wash out and won't have any budgetary impact. So that would be our recommendation. Leave the access points in for FY22. There's a list of devices that we're going to purchase next year that total about $43,000. Those would come off, and we would do that using the E&D this year. We can get those ordered, and we won't have any risk. So we were asking for about $42,000. It leaves about another $22,000. If the committee so desires, you can put the additional $22,000 towards the OPEB fund if that's something that you want to consider. So you still be using the same dollar amount that we talked about at the budget subcommittee, but funding the OPEB fund.
So you're going to take out the, instead of spending $42,000 on access points and $57,500 on the lab upgrades at this time,
Yep.
out of E&D, you're proposing that you do $19,000 for some devices to move us away from Citrix, and at least 40, possibly more, to OPEB, because you still have to reduce E&D because you have an excess.
That's correct.
Okay.
So let me see if I can maybe clarify. The $57,000 we're still going to do through E&D. I'm not touching that.
Okay.
So we're still leaving that there. In addition to that, it's about $19,000 in other devices we can purchase with those the PC lab 57. So it's a total of $77,000 approximately. That leaves, based on the recommendation, about $22,000 that we won't be using out of E&D. I would say instead of doing $40,000, do $62,000 to the OPEB fund. So you're still using the same dollar amount as outlined in the recommendation, but using it for different things. Is that clearer or more confusing?
Can I ask what, like on the report that you provided from the excess and deficiency calculation, it looked like there was a total in excess of 71.
Correct.
Is there a reason why you're going above that? Is that because of anticipated other boosts into
E&D?
No, I believe that we felt that we're required to spend the 70,000 and change.
Yep.
And we were prepared to spend a little more out of E&D. We felt maybe another 50,000, whatever the difference is, we could afford to spend. But we were thinking that we were buying computer equipment or access points that are really needed. And if we bought them this year, we were hoping to be able, particularly the access points, we're hoping to be able to get those installed over the summer. And that's the item that you're concerned about, getting the E-rate filing done in time.
Yeah, my concern is trying to spend 42,000 using E&D and then jeopardizing any E-rate money that we could leverage against that. So that's why we said, let's pull that away. Let's let the E-rate process go through. Use the E-rate to help fund the access point. The access points aren't as much of a big deal as Mr. Levesque had indicated that they're going to be installing the majority of them with some work being done by his team. So we actually, it's not a big project, a big lift as indicated, because that's what my concern was too. It seems like a daunting task. There's some access points that may be in this room. We're not going to get to those. We're going to let the contractor handle those. We're not going to risk ourselves from getting hurt. They have the equipment, they'll come in and do it. The lower lying ones are the ones, the low reaching ones are the ones we were able to address. So, and I did, we've been going back and forth with our E-rate consultant, making sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves and doing something, and it's better to do this approach than it is to realize we lost the E-rate funding for this particular project.
So do we need a motion for this?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear, what are the dollar amounts that you're recommending?
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I make a motion that we increase the 21-22 budget by $139,500 with $62,000 for OPEB, with $57,500 for lab upgrades, and with $19,000 for other administrative devices.
So moved.
Motion, has it been seconded?
Yeah.
He made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering if we have to say that we're increasing the budget by that amount, but we're not increasing the assessment to each of the individual communities.
I think with these funds coming from certified excess and deficiency, there's no need.
Okay, we can add that. With the funds coming from certified excess and deficiency, which does not increase either town's assessment.
Do I have to withdraw?
Can I just add one more little monkey wrench to this?
No.
Still early. So you had approved, the committee had approved 40,000, probably I think back in December and or November sometime, to use 40,000 for OPEB. That was approved, but what happened was the E&D certification expired. So basically, you're not doing another 40,000 in addition to what you've done. I think it was in November sometime.
Okay.
So basically, we're rescinding what we did in November and just doing the 62,000. It's not 40 plus the 63.
You can use it, but you don't.
No, I know, but I think that's what we're going to communicate. That's
No,
November.
but did we authorize that 40,000 to come out of E&D?
Yes.
So you said that that's expired and we can't take it out of E&D at this point?
What I'm saying is the 40,000 that was approved couldn't be done if the vote didn't count because the E&D certification had expired before you approved the transfer. Now that we have the certified E&D, we can make that total transfer under the certified E&D.
But shouldn't we include the 40,000?
Yeah. You have
I
to.
think the motion is correct, that we've agreed to remove 139,500 and for these three purposes.
Okay, we're good? Withdraw? Withdraw? No? Okay, so, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Harris?
Huh?
Return comedian.
I think I'm going to be able to make it bigger, so I'm going to kind of escape out of this just so people can see it. This was a document provided to you, and I think what I'm going to just do is start off at the revenue page, which is right here. Based on what you just approved, I anticipated you were going to approve that, so the budget as presented tonight, take that adjustment, and I've adjusted the technology lines accordingly. And then based on the additional projected or governor's budget for Chapter 70, we're looking at receiving about $530,000 more in additional funding from the state. So the total operating budget is going to be increasing by 3.4%. That includes everything, that includes all the salary and benefits associated with this. This includes all the contracts that were negotiated the past year and a half, and it takes into consideration everything that's been requested by the building principal and the content coordinators. I really should have just started off by saying I do want to thank Susan, the administrative team, Mr. Levesque's not here, and the content coordinators for the work that was done to put this budget together and meeting the timetable that we needed. So I just wanted to thank you. So just wanted to get that out there. So relatively a low increase. I know last year was a difficult year with the shift of special ed out of district tuition coming from the KA to the region. The documents that I provided through this we'll go through them in more detail. I'll be happy to either continue on, or if you want to ask any questions. What's your preference? Want to just keep going? Yeah. Okay, sure, okay. I can make it 7 minutes. Operating budget increase is 3.86%. The total operating budget with the capital assessment, which is your debt service payments, principal and interest on the bonds, is 3.43%. As you'll see, the categories, specifically the ones for special education, is relatively flat, a little decrease in certain areas, and that I'll go through that when we get down to a couple of the other slides. The revenue streams are what we anticipate and project to receive. The school choice and regional transportation bonus, I kept the same as what we're receiving this year until we know what the dollars are. I haven't seen any new numbers coming in on that, so I'm not sure what those numbers are, but they'll be adjusted. I anticipate that we probably may receive a little bit more on the regional transportation bonus side based on some adjustments to our reports to DESI. We're waiting for feedback. We haven't received our allocation yet for this fiscal year, but we'll be receiving it soon. But I think that's a good number and probably a little bit better.
And maybe I'm jumping ahead. This does not include like expected increases in the next round of ESSER funds or anything like that. That happens all offline, right? You have to actually cite those expenses charged to those additional funds separately, or am I wrong?
Yeah, so the ESSER funds have to be kept reported, and the expenditures are kept separate.
Right, okay.
This operating budget takes into consideration if there's any positions that have been funded out of ESSER 2 will be continued to be funded out of ESSER 2 for FY22 will be carried for FY23 in some positions.
Okay.
And we'll do the same thing for the ESSER 3. There are some positions that may be, Mr. Schooner and the team, relative to academic support. I think there were some things aligned to ESSER 3 that were critical to closing the achievement gap for students.
So those might be increases that will be additional resources that are coming to the school, but they're not going to be included here because they're covered on those with those other grants.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. This is the staff request, and you had a lot of conversation about the bathroom vaping issue. There's a line here under the support staff, which is bathroom monitors. This was a request by Mrs. Bralford, Dr. Bralford. And it's 2 FTEs, but the way we approached this based on some feedback during the budget discussion, budget subcommittee, is that it's going to be 4 part-time FTEs that are going to be floating around the building during certain parts of the day based on when we think it's going to be best needed to kind of minimize the issues that they're dealing with right now in the school. So that's why the dollar amount is there, and it also, based on feedback from the budget subcommittee, there's no benefits associated with it because it's going to be less than a 20-hour per week position, probably about 15, 18 hours a week, and it would be a total of 4 part-time positions. The positions above, which is a certified staff, is the in-school suspension piece, that we had a lot of discussion around that, and we're looking at what we can do with that position and what roles and responsibilities we have as a district. So, if there's any questions on any, I'd be happy to stop and defer to those individuals who may be able to speak a little bit more on this.
On that position in particular, I remember a lot of discussion, that was something that was kind of a recommendation or a requirement from one of our last reviews, right, and then we kind of put it aside during the
I'm sorry.
So it's back at point 6, is it not a full position?
It's been a,
I can't hear him.
Oh, that's okay, I'm sorry.
It's a .4 position right now. It's 2 days per week, so it's going from 2 days a week to full-time. So it's
Okay. Will that
That's what it
comply
is.
with what the recommendation is, or
yes, the recommendation was that we did not have an in-school like a policy before or a program. So Dr. Bralford has created one, and again, with DESE really pushing at keeping students in school and not doing out of school suspensions. The in-school suspension has been meaningful, and I believe Dr. Bralford was looking at increasing it from 2 days to more full-time, so that the discipline is more immediate. Instead of if something happens on a Monday, they don't have an in-school suspension now until, say, Thursday. So she can speak to it better than I can, but.
Yeah, so there's a variety of reasons why we're asking for that. Today, like current discipline data, we've had 45 students in school suspension thus far this year and only 25 out of school suspension situations. In previous years, you could add those 45 to the out of school suspensions. We've kept them in school. To speak about what Ms. Ashton was just saying, it's more, we only have it on Tuesday and Thursday, so if there's a student that's disciplined on a Thursday, the consequence then doesn't occur until the next Tuesday, and the immediacy of that consequence, it's not as impactful or meaningful or whatever the situation may be. What's also not included in the statistic of the 45 cases of out-of-school suspension, and we have started to track the data more recently. We don't have the kind of the previous data, but is the fact that we do have students now who've made some really meaningful connections with the in-school suspension teacher. To the, and it's a good thing, right? You kind of ride the fence a little bit of like, you don't want them there, but yet you want them to have a meaningful experience in there. And some of our students now, when they become dysregulated, if they know, they'll come down to us and say, can I just go up there for the period? I can't handle it right now. They go up there for the period, she facilitates the learning, the work, and then we get them back to class, rather than what happens right now. If a student gets removed from a class, we don't have in-school suspension, they sit in the main office. And, certainly we put them in the conference room and we say, do your work, open your Google Classroom, but that's now on the student. We don't have somebody sitting there. Our in-school suspension program right now, not only does she have the student in there all day, the program works so if she knows the student's coming, she emails the teachers for the day, says, send me the work. And then period by period, she actually sends emails to the teacher, this is what was accomplished, this is what wasn't accomplished. So there's a lot of positive education going on in that room. And then, like I said, we've started to now keep track of the kids that are coming down saying, like, can I go there? And I don't want that to sound like it's a negative thing, it's a really good thing that they want to go there. And if we had that every day, if a student was removed from a class, you know, particularly the ones we have that are 90 minutes, instead of them sitting in the main office by themselves, they could be, you know, up there getting their education. She calls the teacher, hey, send the work, and make sure that it gets done, rather than that just be on a student who, you know, is already dysregulated because of whatever just happened and is trying to process things by themselves. We also, my understanding, and Ms. Ashton, I'm sure can speak to this, you know, more than I can, but we have some students coming from the 8th grade who are currently in, you know, a TLC program, and that's, you know, part of, you know, the concern is, you know, if they become dysregulated, this is another kind of support that we can have for them, where we have somebody facilitating their education should that happen.
I remember the discussion about it, and I thought, I saw a lot of value in it. Why are you not proposing it to be a full term, so that you?
I think we
Because it's
already
already
have
point four.
It's point 4 in the budget
So
right
this is in
now.
addition, I got it.
So this would be the other 3 days.
Will result in one full-time position.
Right.
Okay.
Everybody knows how I feel about this. So
I
I'm
knew
just
this
gonna argue
would
the other
prompt some
side.
comments from you.
Sorry. I have a hard time making it a full-time position, given the incidents. I understand the immediacy of a consequence, I understand, but I have a hard time funding a full-time position for something that is still relatively low incidence, and adding a school adjustment counselor, and adding a job coach. I guess for me, and adding a para, like, these are all, you know, in the array of social, emotional, and extra supports that we provide kids, and that, you know, in a perfect world, sure. But when I look at the discipline data, I have a hard time justifying a full-time benefited position for something that's low frequency. And I'm not saying that a dysregulated child should not receive services, but we have school adjustment counselors, and we add one, and we have school counselors, guidance counselors. I mean, I just, if money were no object, great. It is an object, and we're adding it, and it's not going to go away. And I read the regulations, and I understand you have to provide a program, but you don't have to provide a full-time program every day. And there are ways to provide those services. What I think, it might look like, you know, it's an extra $34,000, but that's every year, and keep adding. And I feel more strongly in supporting the school adjustment counselor addition, which I feel can affect far more students. And I kind of, relationships are great. I'm not in there, but for me, the idea of like, I'm having a hard time in class, I'm gonna go to the in-school suspension room. I mean, to me, that's the role of a school adjustment counselor perhaps, or an administrator or someone else. And then in-school suspension is, there's data that goes with that. Like, there's a discipline, you have to, you know, it's not, I don't know, is it a cool off room? Of all of the positions that are being added, we all know the two that I have an issue with. So in-school suspension being full-time, I object to that. And then I know we have a problem with the bathrooms, but I'm also like, are we using subs and we're gonna add bathroom monitors? Because there's some conversation about if the subs aren't assigned to a class at that point, and teacher attendance is better, do we really need those two? So I just want us to be mindful of.
But it is a rare day that we have all of our subs. I just want to make that clear. And as I'm sitting here, I'm getting like calls. So it's never a perfect plan where this is two people and that is their function. And it's, you know, we already talked about this at length, but it's a significant problem in the school.
And I think I want to point out that the paraprofessional position is an IEP compliance. So that paraprofessional position is not adding, you know, to a classroom or a program. This is an IEP compliance paraprofessional that's added to the budget.
And the school adjustment counselor is the same.
The school adjustment counselor, so we've been talking about the TLCs, that the past few years we need to build a TLC type program for the high school. We have students that will be transitioning from the middle school to the high school. We have been working with Janine Wood, the special ed facilitator for the building, and looking at our class groupings and our teachers, so we can, you know, create a classroom that can have those therapeutic supports. But we will need the school adjustment counselor to provide that the support to the students in that type of classroom. To expect that the two that we have now, in addition to their current caseload, provide social skills and daily lessons or support to a therapeutic style classroom of students that would need that support, I think is unfair. We know that with COVID, the social emotional needs are high as, so I think it's a very valuable position to add to the district as a whole with the full focus of supporting our programs that we're developing as well. Oh, I'm sorry, Therapeutic Learning Center for it's a classroom dedicated to students with more social emotional challenges.
Can the in-school suspension also kind of double as like a, maybe not, maybe a terrible idea, a place for high impact tutoring? Because we've heard that that's kind of a value, especially with the learning loss. Is there an opportunity to do that, or that's like maybe 2 days doing it? I don't know, just throwing that up. To have that resource for our students to help with learning loss that potentially happen during COVID.
To put tutors in there, students in there? To tutor?
No, is it so strictly in-school suspension that it can't?
So if there's days that there might not be dedicated students or a high number of students, could that teacher also support some academic tutoring and support? If that happened, like we could look at perhaps like instructional strategies period, or and have students filter through that. I mean, I think that with the position, I think that Susan and the administration have been creative at looking at how we can utilize staff so it's not underutilized. So I do think that we can be creative with how that position is used, but we do need the teacher full-time to create that flexibility.
I just want to point out that the argument for this position originally was tiered focus monitoring recommendation. So if there's a different argument for some sort of position about learning loss or tutoring, that's a different argument to make. But for me, the premise of this is tiered focus monitoring. If you want to use ESSER funds, to talk about learning loss, one time thing, but I have a hard time building a full-time position into this budget for something that has I don't think will be utilized, or does not need to be utilized 5 days a week. And if it's maybe one student on one day, I have a hard time with all the other priorities. I can the school adjustment counselor, the OT, the para, the job coach is another thing that's on here that I just feel like they can't all be priority one. And I want to put resources into, first of all, obviously IEP, things that we're obligated to provide, positions that can provide services to a wide range of students, like a school adjustment counselor, helping many students.
And I don't know if I've had the opportunity at all to speak to you about the job coach position and why we are looking to have 2 job coaches in the program. But again, that program being a 4-year span, it's growing. Next year, we're looking at approximately 19 or 20 students being in our adult transition program. We have hired a fabulous teacher this year who is doing a really great job in the classroom and really differentiating the students' skills. And what we are noticing is that we have students that are participating in some of our college programs that use support. We have some students going out to job sites. We also have, a subset of students that we're looking at creating more school-based vocational jobs and more, life skills and community experiences. But to have one job coach be supporting 19 students in that venue has been very challenging. If we want the program again to continue to be meaningful and help the students prepare them in those 4 years, we really need to differentiate the job of the, so we're hoping to have a job coach that is going to support the students in the building and doing some more school-based jobs and community experiences, and then the other job coach doing more of the job sites and the internships and that thing. So, but we are looking at about 19 to 20 students in that program next year, so that program is growing. That'll be our largest of the substantially separate programs in the high school next year.
So I guess the question I have is, when you talk about the program expanding, does that mean you're bringing students into the district that might have been pushing out before, or is that a whole separate subject?
So we haven't had to So this is my third year. We haven't had an 18-year-old student have to go to an out-of-district program now that we have this program is only in its third year.
Right.
So any student, if we did not have this program, all of these 19 students would be at, like South Coast has Life Academy or May Center. They would be at an adult program. Now that we have this, we're able to support our students in district. There certainly are some students whose needs still continue to be higher than we could support in this. But I do feel that these 19 or 20 students are now supported in district with this program. And the students.
So the cost analysis that you can make for these positions, right? Is that, I mean, essentially, if you didn't have the services, you wouldn't have the students.
If we didn't have this program, these 19 students would be elsewhere at, $67,000 in tuition and then the transportation costs.
Which of those positions is supported?
So the job coach is where I'm looking for that transitions program.
I think the job coach is a good thing. I support the job coach. What does concern me is the paraprofessional RDT. I'm concerned we're going to be able to fill the position at the price we budgeted.
It's a contractual dollar.
I respect that, but I'm still concerned. I would rather lose a bathroom monitor than the job coach, in my opinion. I think it's important for what we're trying to do here. I think this Ashton's making a good point. I'd like to see that on there.
And I certainly don't want my job coach to supersede the bathroom monitors.
I understand.
Safety of the students is certainly.
I'm just using that for an example, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can just add one thing, I know we still have a long way to go in this presentation, but we have an increase of $530,000 in Chapter 70 funds. I have to submit a report to the state by April 1st. That's really considered Student Opportunity Act funds. So I have to justify to the state how we are using $530,000 toward our high-need students and special education students. The $530,000 are not intended to offset the tax base, and I understand that's that's a challenge here. I have to explain how those dollars are being used, and it's supposed to be that increase is supposed to go toward programs.
So, Mr. Schoonover, let me just ask a question then. If you put a position on here and it doesn't get filled, what happens?
I'm not concerned about something not being filled. And I just want to add too, back in 2020 when the Student Opportunity Act first went into place, I think we added a special education teacher that year as well. So part of the justification is we are maintaining the staff. It's not like we have to add $500,000 every year of new staff. I can point to some positions that have already been created, or professional development that's ongoing, but I know it does not come close to accounting for $500,000.
I'd just like to make one comment about the bathroom monitors. I know those are 4 individuals that we're bringing in, and I understand that we may not want to lose one because of bathroom monitors or whatever the case may be, but those bathroom monitors are going to help with a couple of things. One, obviously the issue that we've already discussed multiple times, but it also will deter, or at least we hope it will deter, a health safety for our students, because they're not going to be able to do it on our property. I'm not saying they're gonna quit, but I'm just saying by having that, we're providing an environment where, one, students don't feel uncomfortable going into a restroom, and second, we're not allowing, or we will not participate or allowing $48,000 to allow students to continue to A, obviously break the law, but 2, not doing something in our building while we know it's not good for their health. So I'm just going to make that real clear. And I understand what Mrs. Ashton is saying, and Ms. Ashton is saying this about, I don't want one position to that I need to affect another position. But just keep that in mind. You know, we did talk about this for the last 4 meetings, and we need to find a solution, and this could be a solution, so.
All set to move on, or move
Can
on?
I just ask a quick question? Because I've sat at the budget subcommittee meetings and heard Mrs. Andrews' concerns about the in-school suspension. I've had the opposite concern for some time because I know that it's been cited in our reviews that we didn't have a satisfactory in-school suspension program. I know it's a very hot topic across the state because of the statistics that show that underserved and minority kids tend to be the ones that are out on suspension. We may not have the same level of problem here in our school with respect to those specific issues, but I recall a specific instance where we had several 5-day suspensions in one particular situation a few years ago. And the parent of one of the students that was suspended 5 days spoke to me about it and said, my child was wrong and deserved the suspension. But all you did was send him home for 5 days, and he sat in front of the TV and learned absolutely nothing. And that's the kind of problem that you address with the in-school suspension program. And the other thing is that while we may not have some of the same issues that gateway cities have in terms of suspensions, I think if we looked at it, we find that the largest percentage of our students are really the struggling students who really need the support. So those are the concerns that I've been struggling with for a few years now. Because I think, I've said this, at one point we had a parent on our committee that was an outspoken advocate for struggling kids. And those kids deserve our attention just as much as our AP chemistry and bio kids do. So it's really a tough call. But I feel that Dr. Brelsford will see to it that this person is working 5 days a week, 7.5 hours a day. So that's just my take on it.
The one thing I will say too is that, this did come out of our TFM, and when we did say in our TFM that we were going to do a part-time, they certainly advised us for more. And we are starting a TFM year. I'm sure this is something that they're going to follow up with us on our, so I'm really glad and I appreciate the data that Dr. Brelsford has, that we can show that we've only had 25 out-of-school suspensions with this program, because I do know that when they come on site, I'm just starting the self-assessment now, but they will be looking at our progress monitoring for the things that we were non-compliant before. So I'd love to continue to show, improvement, which I think we've done with what Dr. Brelsford has put together.
This is just a summary of FTEs throughout the district, the adjustments that have taken place, the approved budget versus adjustments that took place during the year, and then the increased FTEs and the total FTEs. This number you can see at the bottom of the more detailed report. It's just more point of reference as we reconcile positions and we're budgeting positions, we're making sure that we're not over budgeting and making sure we have money budgeted for those positions. So we put some mechanisms in place to make sure that happens. This next slide is just the transportation contract. This contract this is the renewal year that was approved by both districts. It reflects the increased rate. The rate was $358 a bus, now going to be $368 a bus. We did follow up and have a conversation with Mr. Ryan Fisher, just looking for the data points. He is collecting the data points, He's had some drivers out, and then with the snow days and the cancellations and the half days, they weren't really good data points. We give him a little bit more time to make sure we have a better picture and a better understanding of what the ridership looks like under normal conditions. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks after school vacation, we'll get some better data points for you. And I did talk to him about the fuel escalation clause. Currently, the way the contract is, I think we're okay with the fuel escalation clause, even though the price of fuel is going up. This one I gotta make a little bit bigger. Yeah, a little bit bigger. This particular one is, there's two components to this. This blue section on the top here, I want to make it a little bit bigger. Not that big. This is the contracted services. This is what we typically will contract out, mostly with Fisher Bus. It could be Trent, it could be another bus company. And these are for students that are transferred out, these are students that are placed out of district. There's a slight increase this year, but that takes into consideration what we know right now. And this budget is really a snapshot of what we know, what students are being transported and what services are being provided. And the next section of the budget is the transportation cost that's done by in-district staff. And that total is, and that's the cost of the drivers. And this is with the additional buses. And we demonstrated that the amount of money we're saving on some of these runs, one bus, could cost us $50,000 a year for a van just to transport special ed children. And in this particular case, we're going to increase this a little bit by $16,000 this year. But that saves us a lot of money in the long run. So Mr. Rosario's done a great job of putting this program in place and running this program. So that's up by $16,000. And then the last piece is really the operational cost of the buses, which is $27,000. Both of these are co-shared with the district, 50-50, and it's a $27,000 cost for the bus, and that includes, the fuel and the maintenance on the vehicles.
So you're looking at, 23,000 for maintenance costs for the high school, and another $130,000 for labor.
Right.
And that's going to operate 12 vans.
12 vans.
Which would have been, are you saying 60 grand each?
It could be anywhere from 40,000 to 60,000,
That's
35.
considerable.
Even if you said $30,000 a van, you want to just rough estimates. That's a $360,000 price tag that you'd be looking at. And that's shared between both districts, so that would, it's about $150,000 per district. That's at $30,000 a vehicle, and there's no way it would be that cheap.
Yeah, there's a range of cost based upon where they're transporting the students. And sometimes it's significantly more than $30,000 a year.
Yes, absolutely. This is a good example above here. It's like one van would be $49,000. It really depends where they're going. 40,000, 45,000, 55,000, depends on the distance. What type of van is it? A wheelchair van? Is it shared cost with the vehicle? So it really depends where we're going. A lot of this is in district stuff, so that's stuff that we can handle. Our philosophy is if we have to go too far out, then it's better to be contracted services, because our van can do 2 or 3 tiers in a day, and that would take one van. And actually save money that way. And then we don't have the wear and tear on our vehicles traveling too far with them. So it actually keeps the vehicles in service longer. We do have a schedule here that also included looking at replacement cycles of vans. As we start looking at this long term, what do the replacement cycles look like? When are we going to do them? How can we blend the replacement cycles in so we don't have too many vehicles replaced in one given year? And that's what we're going to be looking at too. By shifting them and using them in district and keeping the mileage down, we'll kind of blend when we have to replace vehicles. Instead of doing 3 or 4 in a year, we may only have to do one, and then maybe try to do one a year. This next slide is a snapshot of just the total education cost for all the programs and the funding sources, whether we use a circuit breaker, operating, or IDA funds. This is all services. This is medical therapeutic, it's contracted transportation services, and out-of-district tuition costs. So the total, as you can see, is relatively flat over the FY22 approved budget at $3,085,000. The FY23 is $3,097,000. It's a $12,000 increase over the current budget year. And this is just a graphical explanation of where we, each one of these areas. This graph on the left is everything. The graph on the right is just the out-of-district tuition. And this is just a snapshot of the total by program. Out-of-district, in-state, out-of-state, private, residential, and some of the other programs that we have within the district. And then the offsetting savings as far as the use of funds. If you're okay, I'll just keep going. You guys want to go home? Yeah. This is just a summary of the maintenance budget. What we're looking to do in district is basically maintain some of the programs we have in place. The work that Mr. Campos has done over the years has been outstanding. So, and by the way, thanks to Mr. Campos because he did participate in developing this budget document with Mr. Alves. So he had a lot of input on this and looking at what we do to put this in. So we have a consistent process as far as maintaining our buildings. I won't spend a lot of time with this. I think that, it's pretty self-explanatory. One of the ones that probably I should point out is the dynamic year one. It's a contract mentioned with 3-year contract with this. They come in and do some preventive maintenance to the system that we can't do. They'll do some repairs to the thing. They'll test the system, test the compression here, and come in and do some repairs, which is a valuable investment to keep the systems operating properly. In addition to all the work that our HVAC on-staff person does.
Mr. Tara, can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
How much money have we spent on plowing this year?
I'm sorry?
Snow plowing, how much did we spend?
Haven't had all the bills yet. I'm going to think probably just in salt and sand, we probably already spent about $4,000 to $5,000.
Okay. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, about $5,000 right now. I haven't seen all the invoices because of just the most recent storm too.
Thank you.
This is the technology budget. As you can see, as I mentioned at the beginning too, this slide right here is going to be a little bit adjusted based on where we spent the money, where we plan on spending the money, but it's already been adjusted with the anticipation that you were going to approve the use of E&D. So this reflects that change. This is not going to be adjusted down in addition to what you had just approved. This already reflects that. And then just a graphical explanation of where we're spending our money one year to the next year. This is really small, and even if I make it big, it'll really still look small. But this is kind of a summary by category of all the things that we are doing in district with technology. And there's a ton. This is our core business. This helps support the teaching and learning piece. Some of the top items here are more the operational costs associated with running a district, and some of these are obviously shared costs with the K region, with the K district. So these items right here that have been yellow actually should start off with 12, line 64. And that's going to be eliminated based on what we just approved. We'll take that out and add the $42,000 back in. That is the technology piece. You should see it down by $3,200. One of the things that Mr. Levesque is working on is he's actually working on, it's almost like a strategic plan for technology. It's the master plan of, here's all the devices that were put in place when the building was built. here's what we're gonna start planning to address. You know, he's gonna map that out, it's gonna be switches and other things. So we'll have a better picture of how to plan for this, and also to start leveraging E-rate for some of those things that are eligible for E-rate reimbursement. So he's putting that plan in place. And then this one is just the summary of annual debt service, which is principal and interest payments, and it includes a contribution to the stabilization fund. And that's the summary of everything that went into this budget. You do have another document I provided with you. It's a draft document. I think it's 17 pages long. One of the things I do want to point out is that under the OPEB contribution of $10,000, it reflects that it looks like a $20,000 contribution in this FY23 budget. If the school committee is okay with that, we would keep it there. I just wanted to put a placeholder in there so that you can think about, once the OPEB subcommittee meets again and they come in with a recommendation, what are we going to do? But at least this is the first step on moving that contribution up a little bit instead of getting significant dollars increasing in that program. So. Any questions? I know it's a lot to digest. There's a lot of information there. The budget subcommittee worked really hard. I appreciate the efforts. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the pushback, because they don't, they're doing their due diligence before we even get in front of you. So, but I welcome any questions you have. If you have anything that may come up as you're reviewing the documents, please feel free to email me or the superintendent. We'll be happy to respond. As it relates to curriculum, there's really no new adoptions this year, and Mrs. Haskell has been working with the content coordinators relative to utilizing grants, Project Lead the Way, and the other one we were talking about today was
Innovation Pathways.
Thank you. So those are side funds that we'll be using to support these programs and these activities as well that don't have any impact on the budget.
Is there a way that you're looking at sustaining those investments when you don't have those funds available, or am I confusing, the SOA funds will stay in place going forward?
Some of what Mr. Tara is referring to they are in the budget. It's just not in addition. It's an additional funding piece. We are applying for some Innovation Pathways funding. At this time, Dr. Belsford, Mr. Schoonover, and I have really discussed that much of that will be an investment in professional development and curriculum design as it relates to the innovation pathways that we have already established. And so again, if we don't get the money, we will find another way to kind of work that in, and we have it, it's kind of our ongoing plan. So it may actually be a cost savings in the long run if we were to be awarded those additional monies. But for the most part, whatever you're seeing included in the budget proposal, it's similar to what it has been. And even to get the Innovation Pathways designation, we did not receive additional funding when we got that designation. Although it will hopefully benefit us with the grant application that we're putting in. The project leads the way. I believe we are in year 2 for computer science, year 1 for biomedical, and again, those will continue, and any of the spending that we have done is in alignment with those parameters that project leads the way has provided, and any other funding that again comes out of the operating budget, you will see reflected in the proposal. But it is not additional, or it's not more money than what we've done in the past year.
I do want to add one more thing. Is I thought about it when we were meeting with the content coordinators. We did go through their current operating budget, looked at what they have and spent, asked them to make sure that one of the things that they do need, and also some of the things that they may not need, and they're asking for in the new fiscal year, can we order them now? So that's some of the things that Mrs. Brelsford has been working with the content coordinators. I've seen some requisitions already coming in, and they're already doing those type of things. So we'll continue to do that as a normal practice. You don't ask for something if you can get it now and you need it now. Let's get it now, so we don't have to incur a cost in the next year.
Was there any more questions on that before we move? No?
Just process-wise, so that, thank you for the budget subcommittee for your work on getting it to here and the administration and stuff. The next step, so where are, I'm just wondering
Well,
what the next step is.
I guess I would think that, does the committee have any areas of the budget they'd like us to look at closer at? Do we need to reconvene the budget subcommittee to, and that's where I think the assessment's going to be part of the discussion, but where do you go from here?
Right.
Is the budget, as you have it, acceptable to everyone, or do you want us to work with the committee or the subcommittee to go back with direction to say, okay, this is great, but take out $200,000. I'm just, that's kind of, this is still for the preliminary budget, so waiting for feedback from the committee on next steps. So,
Well, I think my recollection is, the process is you have to approve a preliminary budget in advance of the budget hearing. The preliminary budget is presented at the budget hearing, and then after the budget hearing, we have to then meet and approve the final budget, and all of that has to be done by April 1st, I believe, March 30th or April 1st. So we need to kind of look backward. Our public hearing on the budget is March 24th?
22nd.
22nd. Okay, so sometime between, do we have another school committee meeting between now and March 22nd?
Not right now, no.
No, we have to approve the preliminary budget. And we have to do it in advance of the public hearing because it has to be available, I believe, at least 48 hours in advance of the public hearing in the superintendent's office so that any member of the public that wants to review it has the opportunity to do it. So we're going to have to approve the preliminary budget sometime between now and is the 22nd day of the week, is that?
Tuesday.
That means it has to be approved the preceding week properly. So I don't know whether we should plan to meet sometime in March or...
Is there a chance, are there still moving pieces though? Like I'm hearing that you're still looking to see if there are some potential purchases that can happen this year that might...
We've already have that in motion, and the budget reflects those adjustments, so we take that into consideration. So we already went through that exercise to flush that out.
And what about with revenue? Some of those numbers are kind of flat.
They are. The school choice is one that I'm not sure where that's going to go based on the new, I haven't looked at the data yet and if there's been any adjustments to that. In the regional transportation bonus is another one that I anticipated may be increased a little bit because it's based on the prior year spending. So that's something that we won't know for a little while. But all the other stuff is that, Mr. Pierce sits on the governmental health group and that reviews the medical insurance. Those are pretty good numbers. I don't see any
Actually,
changes.
we're going to be meeting on Thursday of the
17th.
And I believe we're going to be discussing the Blue Cross proposal that will be effective as of July 1.
Okay.
I think the numbers that we settled on are the Medicare.
Yeah, I think we have a placeholder.
Medicare, the retiree plan is flat pretty much. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with based upon our performance, I suspect it's going to be relatively flat, but we'll know on Thursday when we get the Blue Cross proposal. I think you mentioned that you built a couple of percent increase into this proposed budget.
Yeah, the retiree health, I leveled off. The retiree health
I think
insurance,
that's it.
I think, and it's actually down by 6,000, but it's based on the participation numbers when I did this budget. And I thought there was a 2% or a 3% placeholder in the insurance for active employees.
My recollection is that you mentioned that you had around a 2% increase built into the proposed budget.
Yes.
As I says we should know sometime, well, I'm expecting that we'll know on Thursday what Blue Cross proposal is. We may very well vote on the increase. The premium level for next year, starting as of July 1st.
But there's a 2% placeholder for the insurance, not knowing what it was going to be. Claims experience, I think claims runoff was looking pretty consistent. It wasn't overly aggressive as far as what the claims runoffs were, so I think we're okay with the 2%. The budget adjustment from the current fiscal year to next year is based on how many individuals and how many retirement plans we have. So it looks like it's almost like a flat increase in medical insurance, but in essence, it's adjusted because of who's picking what coverage when that was prepared. If you want, we can jump right to the assessment sheet, but I mean, I'm not sure if we answered the question about the process.
Well, can I make a suggestion on the process? Like, if we had a conversation about the preliminary budget, I'd like for us to look at the assessment, so that would generate a little more conversation. And then I'd like to have one more meeting of the budget subcommittee. We're closed with the preliminary budget, but there are still some things that I'd like to look at. So I'd like to have another meeting of the budget subcommittee, and then out of that, hopefully come to recommendation for a full committee meeting before the 20 to approve the preliminary budget. Speaking for myself, I'm not there.
Before, because we said I probably have it in your office available by Thursday or Friday, because the meeting's Tuesday, it's going to be 48 hours for business, business hours, so it'd have to try to be available by Thursday of the preceding week, so we can meet on Tuesday. The Ides of March.
The Ides of March works.
So, meet on Tuesday, so the budget subcommittee got to meet for that.
Yeah, and I think we'll have, depending on what we do for the rest of the evening, we may have several policy matters for that meeting in March anyway, so.
Can I just interrupt? You say March 15th? There's a show choir competition at the school,
Oh, really? Okay.
so I won't be able to attend. Just
Is there a preference that we meet mid-March? So the mid-March is going to be for the full school committee to approve the preliminary budget. So the budget subcommittee is going to have to meet in between now and the 15th. Or whatever that is to be determined.
Is Wednesday out for that week? 16th?
Is that good time?
16th is available. Public Education Foundation is the only thing on my calendar that night.
I mean, if we have to have people, we'll have the preliminary budget available on Thursday. I'm sure we need to try to meet on Monday.
Monday the 14th is a Somerset School Committee meeting.
So the 16th it is, right now.
And the week before, the only thing scheduled right now is a Somerset Berkley policy meeting on the 9th.
Not process, thank you.
are we able to continue?
Yeah.
Just look at this top number here, which is where my cursor is, right-hand side. I'm gonna see if I can make this a little bit bigger without losing too much of the, yeah, it seems like it's still there, okay. This 20,379,000 is the total operating budget. It's on the right-hand side of the page, and that's the total operating budget, and then based on the formula that was approved and the calculation, we back out the transportation, the capital assessment, and the out-of-district tuition, we come up with an adjusted base operating budget. Once we do that, then obviously we look at this based on the information from DESI, what the minimum local contribution is. That's provided by DESI to us, and that's how we plug those numbers in. And then basically what we'll do is we take the difference between what was the minimum local contribution and what the above minimum would be. The base operating budget is 15 million. We would look at what the 15 million is as a percentage of the number of students. Based on the information from DESI, it's 725 Somerset students and 257 Berkeley students. That would be, that's used in this calculation. So you come up with your total minimum plus your minimum contribution plus your minimum local contribution plus your assessment contribution. Then we take the Chapter 70 and we allocate that to each of the respective communities. We reduce that by the...
Can I interrupt just for
yeah,
1 second
yeah.
while you're there? The two purple cells, step 2, off to the side, where it shows the minimum local contribution, which is a state-defined number. It's just interesting to show, if you look at FY23 compared to FY22, the districts, the regional districts, minimum local is actually decreasing by 25,000. But when you look at the two towns, Somerset's minimum local contribution is decreasing by about $55,000, and Berkeley's is increasing by $30,000. So the state is determining that Berkeley has a higher ability to pay than Somerset does. So Somerset's minimum local is decreasing, Berkeley's is going up. I think that we'll see that slight difference there that will filter down these columns as we look at these other calculations.
Thank you for...
And can I add to that too, just for my friends in Berkeley, you can see that Berkeley's population is down, but its minimum local contribution is up, and that's not something anyone in this room can control. So even though, at first glance, you might think, well, the population is down, why is the contribution up? But that's about community wealth, and that's not something that the district can determine. That's our friends at DESI. Email them if you don't like it, provide the address.
Where they for just the general revenue that's allocated, as we've done in the past, we take all the revenue that we're anticipating. These numbers are based on what we anticipate they're going to be as far as revenue sources, Medicare and E-rate we talked about. And then we allocate the 80,000 for the television production revenue just to the Somerset, because I wasn't in agreement with just the town of Somerset. And then we come up with that total operating assessment. And then we look back in and we back the transportation allocation back in. But what we do is we take the credit of the regional transportation bonus. To Mrs. Gagliardi's point, if the transportation, regional bonus transportation is increased, then that number would be plugged. We would replace, let me just see if I can make this a little bit bigger. This $173,000 here, I'm carrying the same number over from the previous year, the current fiscal year. If that number were to go up a little bit, then obviously these numbers would be adjusted down a little bit, proportionate to the allocation of percentage of students above. Then we just did a quick calculation as far as the per pupil cost relative to per pupil cost, and then per pupil cost excluding special ed. And the total assessment as a percentage, the assessment changes. Somerset portion is going up by 23,000, but Berkeley's portion is going up by 162,000. I just want to shrink this a little bit, 'cause I'm losing a portion of this page. There's an easier way to do this, but there's not. And part of this formula is how we allocate the special ed out-of-district tuition fees. We look at what the projected out-of-district tuition is this year, based on each of the member community students that are placed out of district. We allocate that as a percentage, then we allocate the special education cost back up into the calculation, so they're proportionally shared based on the student population from each member community.
So the 184,280 is based on actual Berkeley students, and the 2,096,857 is actual Somerset.
Actual students for this fiscal year, correct.
For this fiscal year or for the coming fiscal year?
The 184,000 is for next fiscal year,
Okay.
FY23.
Yeah, okay.
The bottom portion is the current estimated, and then that's where you get the percentage for the allocation of
The revenue.
the revenue piece, which is the IDEA and circuit breaker.
Yeah, so there seems to be two drivers. Because when I saw this assessment, they were like, what's going on with Berkeley's enrollment going down? Why is the shift the way it is?
Well, the percentages haven't changed. Somerset's went down too, so the percentages are almost identical.
You're talking about above?
Yeah, the number of students went down.
Yeah, let me just
Right.
go
The
back up
number of
here.
Somerset students went down, so the percentages are identical.
They're pretty close.
Yep, that's true. And then I think that the minimum local contribution drives it, and then you see below, special education costs also drive it.
Right, there's about, I think if my math is right, there's about a $70,000 increase in the Berkeley side of things that is attributed solely to increasing minimum local contribution and an increase in out-of-district from last year. But I would also remind my friends in Berkeley that we also, a change that we made to this formula last year also benefited us a great deal in terms of allocating out-of-district tuitions to the students from the sending K to 8. So yes, it's an increase for us. And my guess is if it's $40,000, it's probably, although I don't know, we could check with Ms. Ashton, probably an increase in services as opposed to an actual student. 40,000 is for an existing, I'm guessing, it's maybe an increase for existing students.
Yeah, there's pretty increases just from those out-of-district placements.
So I don't think
It
it's
is
a new
set-
K to, it's not a new Berkeley
No
K to 8
K-8,
student.
so that's
It's not coming off the Berkeley K to 8 budget.
Correct.
Again, I'm speculating, probably just increases in existing tuition. That's about 7,000.
Because if it were coming off the Berkeley K-8, that was an argument we made 2 years ago.
Right, then essentially, I mean, Berkeley, when you're looking at it from a Berkeley point of view, or whatever, if it's coming off the K to 8 and it's going out to the high school,
It's the
it's
same
a lot.
cost, you're just paying it from a different bill.
I suspect
That's
that
what we did last year in
Right.
Somerset, but this is, that was my question going to be,
Yeah.
is it a transfer, but it isn't.
I don't know for sure, but, and we can check, but my
That would be
suspicion
good.
is no.
All right, I think, I mean,
Yeah, and we should make sure that if there are any issues that the budget subcommittee has, or if the members of the committee generally have, we should get them in as quickly as possible. Or Mrs. Andrews just mentioned some information she might have to have from our special ed director. I thought we also, at one point during our budget committee discussion, said it might be good if Mrs. Ashton could just in very rough terms show the potential cost of those out-of-district placements for the students that we're keeping in district versus the cost that we're incurring to maintain that over that in-district program, and wanted those additional staff members, and to see, if those additional expenses are well justified by the savings in out-of-district placements, which, we know, depending on what they are, can range, from $60,000 to $150,000 a year.
Yeah, we did, Sebastian and I did speak to that, and we were gonna put something together, we just kind of, sometimes we run out of time in the course of the day, so I will circle back with her on that.
And we could focus just on the transition program that she was talking about a little while ago with 19 students.
So that's what I was just.
Yeah, just do that as one example. You know, if I could, anyway, you can play with these numbers later, but over in step 7, where it was the total operating assessment, just to note that the total, whereas we saw, I think it was 0.28% increase for Somerset and 6.04 for Berkeley. The total operating assessment is increasing by 1.66%. And then when you factor the capital in for step 9, the total assessment is up 1.39%. But as we looked at those other numbers, Somerset's total assessment is up 0.38%, whereas Berkeley's, I think I have it just correct, about 4.5%.
Well, that's what we were just looking at,
Yeah. But overall, it's a 1.39% increase in the assessment.
It's just, we've got to just figure out where it came from, like what you were doing, in order to explain it. A little bit more. So, I think more time is
Some of this is
better.
out of our hands.
Exactly.
There's one that's completely out of our hands, and well, really two components that are pretty much out of our hands.
Yeah.
And on the out-of-district, I think we've done a lot of work to try to make it as equitable and as possible, so I don't know how we could get any better about it, other than the work that's been done to keep kids in the district when that's appropriate and feasible, so it's all the other pieces.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.
What's that? Thank you.
Yeah, it was just, I'm sorry, just looking at these numbers in line with what you were saying, where just looking at those two columns, Berkeley's is an increase of $70,000. Those same two numbers for Somerset is a decrease of about $110,000. So you're just seeing Somerset's going down by 110, Berkeley's going up by 70. There's your, I'm assuming the $180,000
Yeah, there's your swing.
difference that we're seeing there in that total increase.
Okay. We all set with this, Mr. Farrar?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Farrar? And you don't have to say this if you want.
Would it be possible to move some of these agenda items to our next meeting, as it's, just out of respect for the fact that it's 10:45 and for those who have to work tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's just a thought.
I think we just added a meeting.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, since we added a meeting, we could potentially move some of this.
I need this there.
All right, what do we got here this month?
Yeah, is there anything urgent or?
Well, the only thing is, I asked to place some items on the agenda, and I will not be at the next meeting, so.
Oh, we changed the date.
When is it now?
16.
I will be in.
16, yeah.
So, as far as, if we look quickly at this, the retreat,
Well,
we can talk about that later. We were planning to move the policies, I don't think there's anything urgent there. The communications piece, I think that on the executive session minutes, I think are maybe time sensitive.
Is it time sensitive because somebody's requested them?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we're going all those.
Let's just do that. I need to get to that.
I would just say, you need to, whatever our try to plan our meeting because we have some policies for first reading that we really like to get considered, and we'll have, I'm hoping and anticipating, the MSBA provide us with a complete rewrite, section B of the policy manual, and those are ready for our policy subcommittee to consider at our next meeting, which is already scheduled for the 9th. So we hope to have all of those, that whole section for policies and ready for the next meeting. So we'll need to set aside, 15 or 20 minutes for that discussion, because there are some policies, like our open discussion. There are a couple of policies that might require some committee discussion, a little bit of focus that the policy committee didn't want to take on. And there's also an issue in one of the proposed policies about PTOs needing to be 501c3 entities, and that isn't the case for most of our PTOs, and there are some, the MSBA policy recommends that they do 501c3, and there are some legal reasons why that may be necessary. So it's an issue that I might not be around to resolve, but it's something that might put on the table. May require joint cooperation between the two districts, kind of create an umbrella organization. And there were a couple of issues on the executive session in this.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What was that?
No, the question is, do we go to the executive session for these minutes?
I'm fine with that, but the only thing is I have to report the self-reporting for the open meeting because I have to supply information to the state, but I need our minutes for this meeting at the next meeting so I can present everything to them. So if you can give me 3 minutes, I can tell you what it is. And I already did it at the open meeting. During the regional planning committee meeting, I received a text message from Representative Haddad, and it was on January 25th at 6:34. And she wrote to me, "If a comment from the public matters, I am very interested in the presentation." I tried to put something in the chat, but not able. I unfortunately did not reply to her because one, I didn't see it. I try to avoid looking at my phone during meetings. But on the following morning at 7:54, I wrote, "Pat, sorry, just seeing this now. I'm sure you are interested in seeing the presentation. Open parentheses, as I, close parentheses, but I have a responsibility to ensure what is shown is accurate. Instead, you and the towns were shown a presentation that had inaccuracies. For the presentation not to be shown to us prior, or better yet, not even the Berkeley superintendent, and yet why was a report drafted 149 days ago and we're completing it minutes before our meeting? As a rep, you too should be asking the same question because the state gave us $25,000 of state taxpayer dollar. If you would further like to discuss, I can call you or you can invite me to a show." At 5:54, oh crap, I thought this was just you and I, Pat. Just noticed that there's a quorum for the K-8 and the Somerset Regional. And I have to make it public because of the open meeting law. Just for the record, as of today, still no one on that email except that text chain has responded, and I'm sure no one will. But the people that were on that text was obviously Representative Haddad, Julie, Rich, and Robert, which created an open meeting violation that I caused because I shared my a comment. So, and the way to correct an open meeting violation is to enclose it. So that's what I'm doing. So that's it.
For those of us who weren't included, should we be offended?
I know.
Hey, you know what? I'm glad you weren't on it because you might have made mistakes like I did. So, but anyways, I just wanted to to make it clear. And I already did it on the K-8 side. Now, once we get the minutes, I can share that information to them and just get my hands slapped, but at least I cleared it.
Thank you.
So why don't we do this? Once you agree, we're going to move down to the approval of prior meeting minutes from in our open session, last meetings, which open session minutes of January 18th, 2022, executive session minutes of January 18th, 2022, and open session minutes of January 25th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Any
Which
discussion?
ones are they, the January 18th?
January 18th, open session, January 18th, executive session.
I'm sorry, the January what?
18th executive session, and open session, January 25th.
Okay.
These are just the typical minutes, not the,
Okay.
all right, so the motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now, an executive session is on the ballot for pursuit to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. 2021 executive session, and it's pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A4, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or services and strategies respected to. The committee will return to open session.
We will?
Because we got to vote
Just to
to
adjourn.
Oh,
vote in publicly.
so moved. Second.
Okay. Motion second, Mr. Pierce.
Aye.
Scagliari.
Aye.
Ms. Andrews.
Aye.
Ms. Vincent.
Aye.
Mr. Machado.
Aye.
Mr. Goff.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Okay. All right, we should-